In today's video, I'm going to be going over 3 different ways that you can reduce some of the nerves, anxiety, and fear that often come up before you fight. And regardless of the style of martial arts or fight sport that you compete in, hopefully at least one of these tips can help you out and calm you down before you get into the ring or the cage. Because I know the last thing that you want is to be so overwhelmed by nerves and by fear that you underperform when the time counts. I personally learned this lesson the hard way a few years back when I had my first ever mixed martial arts match and was almost knocked out in the first round. I had allowed myself to become overwhelmed by the immense pressure that I put on myself. The moment that I stepped in the ring and had those lights shining down on me and could hear the hundreds of people that were spectating. Okay, let's get right into it. Tip number 1 for lowering your nerves before a fight or a competition is to take a breath and remind yourself that the person that you're going to be fighting or competing against is feeling the exact same feelings that you are. It's completely normal and natural to have as a human being that's about to go out there and have a fist fight in front of God knows how many people. So unless you're about to engage in mortal combat against a giant silverback gorilla or an 800-pound polar bear, you can be sure that the person that you're going to be fighting or competing against, no matter how skillful or scary looking they might be, is also feeling some sort of pre-fight nerves, which should hopefully lift at least some of the weight off your shoulders before you get in there. It definitely does for me. Tip number 2 for dealing with pre-fight fear is visualization, but not in the way that you're probably thinking. I don't mean just imagining going into the ring and instantly KOing your opponent with a flashy spinning back kick to the face, or having an easy fight, because if that doesn't end up happening, I can assure you that you're going to be in for a very rude awakening. The type of visualization that I find works for me personally is imagining the hardest, toughest fight possible. I try to picture my opponent being the fastest, hardest hitting mofo out there, where I'm forced to block some of the hardest hitting, most powerful punches, kicks, knees out there. Some of them even getting through my guard and landing on my legs, my body, my head, and getting rocked and wobbled and being forced to weather a tough storm. I remember seeing a video clip once of UFC fighter, I think Justin Gaethje, saying that if you can mentally prepare yourself for the worst possible outcome, that you'll be able to loosen up and go in there and actually enjoy yourself while you're competing and doing the thing that you love to do the most. I happened to experience this in my latest Muay Thai fight here in Thailand, where my opponent landed a nasty barrage of knees over and over again to the point where he had broken or fractured my sternum. And this was just in the second round. And when all of this was happening, I remember thinking, this is it. This is what I signed up for. This is what fighting is. It hurts. This is its reality. But no matter what, I'm going to push forward and fight until I can't any longer. Now, obviously, I wasn't thinking that exactly word for word in my head, but it was the overall feeling that I had as he was smashing me with those brutal knees in the clinch. And if you happen to already watch that fight, which I have on my channel's page, you'll know that I managed to survive my opponent's vicious attack and even managed to rock him with a few big shots of my own before the end of that second round, and was even able to come back strong throughout the rest of the fight. My third tip for dealing with pre-fight nerves and anxiety is developing some sort of meditation practice. Even if it's just starting out with a few minutes a day and working your way up over time, it can be extremely beneficial. And while these days I'm not the best at sitting down and meditating every day, I'm still able to manage to remind myself of some of the lessons and the insights that I learned over time in my mindfulness and meditation practice. Lessons that have been extremely helpful in aiding me at not taking myself so seriously, or the bad things that happened to me in my life so seriously. As somebody who used to have a very negative and pessimistic view on life, I can definitely say that having a meditation practice has helped change this dramatically. So you're probably asking yourself, what does this have to do with pre-fight nerves? Well, for one, an important insight that meditation teaches you is that things like your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, they're all impermanent. Meaning that if you're eventually able to learn how to watch those thoughts or those negative feelings and learn not to identify with or cling to them, and in this example, those negative thoughts and feelings are the fear and anxiety and nerves that bubble up before you go into a fight. If you're able to simply learn how to, well, it might not be so simply at first, but learn how to observe those feelings of fear and anxiety, you'll see that them, like everything else, arises and falls, appears and disappears. If you're able to do this, you will eventually learn to have the skill to let them go. Now, no matter what, these feelings are going to come up. Again, it's completely normal and natural. But if you no longer focus on these negative feelings and thoughts and cling to them, they won't last as long and, again, disappear, causing you to become far more relaxed and present during the time leading up to your fight. And you can also zoom out and observe the impermanence of the actual fight itself, the physical act of the fight itself. For example, every fight that I've had in the past is simply a memory. All of the negative feelings, whether they be physical, mental, or otherwise, that I had felt in that moment while I was fighting, at this point in time, they all just seem like a blink of an eye when compared to my life as a whole. This can be applied to every horrible or negative experience that you've had in your past. Things from the past that had happened to me that seemed like the end of the world at the time. Oh, so very terrible. They are either at this point simply forgotten, or at the most feelings or memories that have very little impact on my life now. Unless, of course, I allow them to and latch onto them and identify with them in the way that I described earlier. Again, zoom right out and realize that nobody out there actually cares whether or not you win or lose as much as you think they do. So much of this is just in your head. Remind yourself that maybe, just maybe, some things just aren't as serious as your brain is tricking you into thinking that they are. Life is short, training is fun. Fighting is fun, so enjoy the process, enjoy the journey. I know it's a cliche, but it works for me.